We are live and welcome to Misaligned. We're back with another episode of this concept where we talk, we jab, no pun intended. We have the conversations and we get to the crux of things that matter that other people don't necessarily get to the point of. As usual, you'd expect us to have the conversations. Maybe we're aligned, maybe we're not. Maybe we're in the same boat, maybe we're not. Doesn't matter. What matters is that we're getting to the heart of the conversations. Today, we're talking a little bit about faith and paradox. We're looking at religion, corruption, and development in Africa specifically. This is going to be an interesting one. So, in this podcast, we're going to explore the complex and often contradictory role of religion in shaping society. So we're going to dive into a thought-provoking conversation on how religion influences development in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. But before I start talking too much and talk your ear off, I'm going to let Jab just do a little bit more about developing this topic. Let's have a few different thoughts from him. Jab, over to you.
Okay, so I think the subject today really it's religion, the paradox of religion. So if we take our country or Africa, for example, very deeply religious societies, yet we sit at the top of the corruption index around the world, and in Nigeria, for instance, bribery, corruption is a really big thing. And who are these people who give and take bribes? Christians and Muslims, because we make up more than 90% of the population of Nigeria. And I think that this will be true right across the rest of Africa. In Nigeria, particularly down south, we've got particular problems with children being labeled as witchcraft and then being, in some cases, actually even killed. And this is intricately linked to religion. In the north of Nigeria, we have child bride marriages, and some of our governors have championed, for instance, Sharia law. I don't have a particular problem with Sharia law, but like we discussed last week, what you find sometimes is people, we talked about religion being a tool of control. So we find that actually religion can be used some of our governors have used religion to further their political agenda. So for instance, a petty thief has their hand chopped, but then somebody with the stroke of a pen can steal or wire billions of naira to offshore accounts. So these are the issues I want to try and discuss. Does religion actually make people good? How can we be so religious in our country and yet be bedeviled by poor development? I think another point to mention is you will be sharing a video, I believe, Cross, shortly. There's a lot of people believe in faith and people believe that in miracles and God can do all kinds of things. And we have, pastors raising dead people and curing all kinds of diseases. Still, in spite of all of that, I would say actually, as a result of that, I think that we have become a very, very, very superstitious society. I think what it's done is that it's made us more gullible, very easy to, so trusting of, and in the case of, politics, sometimes you have leaders coming out and saying what we need to do is actually pray more. We've had, I'll just mention a few examples. Late former president of Nigeria, Gowon. We have pastors like Pastors, Kumi, the whole lot of them actually coming out and saying that what we need to do actually is to pray more. So that's what we're going to be exploring. I think I'm going to move the conversation hand over the conversation to Yemi, who would co-chair, as it were.
Hi, everyone.
Over to you,
good
Yemi.
evening. Thanks, Jab, and thanks everyone else who's joined us. I think it's an interesting topic, and straight off, I would like us to, perhaps if we can, look at it from a particular perspective or a question in my mind, because we talk about religion, and it was a great intro from both Cross and Job there about some of the identified problems with regards to how religion doesn't appear, certainly within the Nigerian and the wider African context, to have helped us become more moral or get involved more with things that help society to move forward. But I would like to, if we can contrast that with what we had before, because we did have religions in traditional African settings before the religions came from outside, so particularly talking about Islam and Christianity. So what I'd like us to do, if we can, is perhaps to contrast what we had before with what we've got now, and almost speculate about what we think may have happened if we didn't have that disruption, and whether or not we think that some of these problems that we find with religion today, as in the Nigerian context, for example, are direct consequences, or, if you like, just some sort of noise in the background. Farouk?
Thanks, everyone. The matter of religion and how it interfaces with how individuals, communities, and countries organize themselves is something I've given a great amount of time thinking about. We've had informal conversations about them. So it's not something that is new, but it's still an area where I'm still developing frameworks and thoughts as to what is going on. So to first address what Yemi has said, how were things before? How are they now? And how do they contrast? Growing up in Nigeria, people of our generation didn't have much experience of how things were before. But I do recollect very clearly that, at least from the part of the country where I come from, there's a lot of overlap of the traditional belief with Christianity and Islam. And what is clear from how people interface with these faith systems or belief systems is that we tend to be more afraid, more worried, and more connected to our traditional beliefs from the perspective of supposed consequence of not doing the right thing. Whereas on the Islam Christianity side of things, there is the notion that punishment comes after death. There's a heaven and a hell.
So we don't fear the
that immediate consequence. So let me go back to my own belief system. Yeah. I come from Middle Belt, Nigeria, Igala people. There is a sense of perhaps the thunder striking you when you've lied or you've stolen or you've gone to do what we call ebo. You swear at the shrine to affirm that you've not done it. And the belief system kind of prescribes almost certain immediate consequences. So you find that even as a young boy and with family and with the community, when there's a case of theft, there's an injustice, and we go to the shrine to try and adjudicate, people take it more seriously. People believe in that instant punishment, and I think we take it to heart and we believe in it. So in that sense, that fear, that reverence is there. So that's kind of how I can contrast my experience as a Muslim with my experience of the African traditional religion. How does that go on?
No, it's fine.
How that then interfaces with how communities and societies are organized is therefore it's from that basic belief system we draw laws and norms and customs, and even the idea of courts. Okay, so in the contemporary system, we go to court and swear on the Quran and swear on the Bible to affirm that we are giving true testimony. And obviously, we are all bounded by that affirmation or putting our hands on these new holy books, including the judge who interprets the law. But my theory, and one theory I may have discussed informally with you guys, is that because we don't revere and fear these newer belief systems, we corrupt it. We ignore it. We bastardize it.
Can I interrupt you? Why do you think we don't revere or are fearful of these new religions?
I think I've touched on it. I think the idea of that instant karma, instant punishment is maybe one.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's a good point, because I was going to
Yeah.
say
So
that because those two beliefs are filled with the notions of hellfire and punishment for eternity. Like you're going to burn for the rest of, well, not even your life, but for eternity, you just
mhm.
burn. Why does that not make people scared of consequences? How can someone steal and still swear on that Bible or the Quran, steal as much as they can, and go to church, maybe even give tithe, maybe even give offering from that stolen money, and still give testimony that God has blessed them? How can
so
they not be
Okay.
scared
So I
of?
So
want
I had two broad frameworks I wanted to share. The first one is in trying to contrast the question Yemi had asked us, the previous belief system with the current one, and I'm trying to link that with how that might work within courts and systems. The second one is what Ijabla is talking about, and that framework I want to say is: do we really think religion is a problem? Is it our beliefs that is a problem, or is it the lack of incentives?
okay.
So
That-
would would
I
would
think that's
would 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 believing Brits, Americans, Arabs, do they organize society as we do? Is there a cultural phenomenon there? And when I say organizing, I'm talking about incentives. I'm talking about consequences for breaking the law. Because belief systems don't run societies. And when we begin to say we are meant to be believing Muslims and Christians and we are corrupt, we miss a fundamental point there about how do we organize society? And do we expect faith and belief systems to organize society? I think the answer to that is no. And I think we should not mix that with a lot of us confuse that by saying we're very religious. 90% of us believe in God, yet we're not. But
I think
uh,
I think you've made
Brits
some
don't
very
organize that way.
strong points, Farah, and we'll
Yeah.
come back to a few of them. I think one
Okay.
of it is the connectedness, which I want to kind of hone down on now, if you guys let me. Cross,
Mhm.
Farouk has raised this question about our connectedness to the religions that we had in the past, and contrasted it with how he feels people connect with the religions that came after. Do you think this is a factor in how things play out? There's another very important point that Farouk has raised, which we will come back to, which is obeying the law and how we judge consequences. And I'm just kind of hanging that on the side for a minute. Very important. We'll come back to that. But it's a connectedness. Have you got any thoughts around that, Cross?
Can you ask the question again specifically
So what
around?
so what Farouk has said, if I get it correctly, is that he's noticed in his own experience that there's a slight or significant difference in how connected we appear to be with regards to the religions of our forefathers, if you like, compared with the religions that have come to us more recently, and that might be in some part responsible for our attitudes towards them, in how we revere them, and in how we kind of think about consequences, apart from the other point that he raised about immediacy, our perception of immediacy of judgment, but that there's this connectedness. Do you think that the fact that something was passed down for many generations and has almost kind of become part of our DNA, compared to something that came maybe 100 years ago, maybe less than, kind of makes a difference? It's a broad question, I know, but
Yeah,
perhaps
this I'm aligned. I think one of the biggest issues I've had, because this is a very broad question, it's a very interesting one as well. I think in quite a few of the third world countries, I call them third world. We probably shouldn't be using those words anymore, because I'm not a fan of that. But that's probably a different conversation we can have in future about the actual the nomenclature around how we name the countries that exist in the world. But the issue that we've often had is that things are foisted on us. We've got religion given to us, and then we've had to implement it based on on our masters, or whoever those people are that come to control the conversation that exists in that place. I'll take a brief step back and I'll come forward. Nigeria itself was determined by external factors, external leaders. People came from other worlds to decide what Nigeria would be. People came from other worlds as well to determine what religions would be what Nigeria uses, overriding all of our traditional beliefs. In Nigeria, we've got over 500 different ethnicities, right? All of these ethnicities have been overridden by the religions that other people came and told us that the religions we have to take. So it's the same kind of concept in my mind as I see democracy. I don't think democracy This is again another topic we're probably going to have a very interesting conversation about later on. I don't think democracy works in Nigeria. The reason being is because it was not something that organically happened. It didn't come because we decided it was a thing that we needed for our people. It came because other people came and said, this is what you need to do to be a cultured society. So it's the same thing with the religion. We had our religions, our historical behaviors, how we treated our Shango, Orumila, all those different deep-seated religions around how we behaved. And there's a separate conversation as well about the origins, the original factors that determine how religion became a part of different cultural aspects of life. Again, it's a separate, there's lots of separate conversations here, right? But the thing about that is we just got given these religions. Here's Christianity, that's how you need to behave as a Christian. Here's Islam, that's how you need to behave as a Muslim. Go ahead and just carry on with that. Problematic, because it's not part of us. The same democracy doesn't work in Nigeria. I think it's failed. I think democracy is a failed system. It's the same way religion doesn't work. It's because we've been given it. We didn't grow into it. We're given Christianity and Islam, and that's what we had. So we need to grow into it. And we're looking and saying, I don't know if this works. How do we turn this to become what it is that works for us? And that's how we've ended up with the things that we have. We have the needs and issues of people that exist within the country, right? Specifically Nigeria. The people who are hungry, the people who are not necessarily even hungry. They've got visions, dreams, ideals, etc. that they want to get. And they convert things like religion to get what they want through prosperity gospel, through that idea about miracles and all these concepts, because we're turning it to become what we need. Not because it is what we need, but because we need something from it. So that short-termism, to Farouk's point about how we've gotten something.
Let me interrupt you.
Go on.
Cross, let me interrupt you. I think if I understand what you're saying is that because these religions are foreign, they're not organic to us because they're alien.
Yes.
We struggle to make it useful.
We convert it into what we need.
That's what you're trying to say. Yes. So, but you know, last week we spoke about how we have also adapted religion in some way. And a good example I could use would be something like maybe cherubim and seraphim. And so why, I think I know the answer to this question, but I want to sound and see what other people think. So we have adapted it to some degree, Christianity in that setting. Why haven't we made it? What is the thing that stopped us from adapting it in a way that it becomes useful in solving our problems? Maybe I can provide a little context.
I want to jump. Can I jump in here and just add? I think civilization is progressive, and it's the totality of knowledge, improvement, and corrections passed on from generation to generation. In the context of Nigeria and Africa, haven't been sliced up and merged into the political construct we have today. We are very early on in our journey of nationhood, journey of identity, journey of spirituality, journey of social cohesion. When the Chinese talk of the Confucius theory, they're talking about a 5,000-year-old philosophy. Who is a Nigerian? What is a Nigerian? What do we believe? What do we aspire to? What is our ethos? We've only over the last 2-3 generations began to answer these fundamental questions. And what made me think this way is when Cross kept saying, evolve. What's our own? So we had 1,000 years of history of consensus, of ways of worshiping, of believing, of organizing. The masquerade, we flog. People who are not meant to be out. The priest will curse and people will die instantly. In our subconscious, passed down through parables, through sayings, through institutions of masquerades, of the Oba, of the king, truncated only 2 lifetimes ago. And we are all building on from the scratch. And I may have used this informally with to convey this thinking and understanding to Yemi before, that we do not spiritually yet connect to our current belief systems. So the fear, the reverence is not there. When you see a Brit within the British society where we all live, they have the Republicans and the monarchists. You see the reverence and the respect and the love the monarchists have for the king. You know, he's not there. The way they, you know, in the Nigerian society, Yemi once called it, like, as a society, we are still suffering from a traumatic brain injury. In one of our informal conversations, we are still oscillating between the two worlds, confused, disorientated, trying to find meaning. So imagine Nigeria to be a person who has just suffered severe brain injury. Different people, different belief system woven together, a constitution imposed, external influences. We are trying to negotiate how I and Jabs and Yemi and Cross can live together within this socio-political construct. At the same time, trying to negotiate new spirituality with the old one. You know, it's a melting point of chaos,
it's a work.
It's a mess.
So,
Go on.
So there was an issue that you raised, Farouk, and that Job has touched on that I want to put back to Job to kind of see how he addresses it, and that's about law and order and how religion interplays with it. And my question to you, Jab, is this, and I pose this question in the context of me kind of feeling that you might be putting too much responsibility on religion for this, and I want you to address my concern about your position. And so the question is this: in societies where things work and people obey the law, and is this because, can you name me any society where this has to do with religion, or in almost all cases it actually totally has to do with a functioning criminal justice system and the systems of incentives, irrespective and in spite of religion? So I don't know if the question makes sense.
No, the question makes sense. So I think Farouk interrupted me before I landed, as it were. I was suspended in air, so let me land now.
So you were kind of right, meaning to address that anyway. Okay.
Yes. So when I said cherubim and seraphim, that we have adapted the religion, I think I was quickly in my mind, I was thinking, hang on, but that is how you worship and how you dance and how you play the music, and maybe I don't know, Angel Michael and Angel Gabriel, or because exactly. So it's that. I don't think that it's translated to either good living. I don't think that as a result of doing that, one or the other, you're better or worse in terms of sort of morality. Okay, and so that would come in terms of crimes, for instance. It's not. I don't sense that cherubim and seraphim have a court system as a result of adapting this foreign religion to suit the Yoruba nation, if I can put it that way. I do not feel as though it has evolved in a way that would, for instance, hold court sessions and say or define new morality, as it were. I don't know if I'm making sense. But is
that their responsibility?
No, it's not their duty. Thank you. It's not their duty. So I'm going to come to that. But before I answer that question, Yemi, I just want to go back again let's go back to the basics, which is, how did religion come about? How did religion evolve? So Farouk has already touched on that, which is, it's a way of organizing society. At some point in time, society would have begun as a family here and an uncle there, an auntie somewhere there, all kind of like living in the same area, right? Maybe even marrying cousins and all that kind of business. And then more and more and more people start to gather. And so once you start to have that, and it grows into a hamlet, into a village, into a town, well, people can just start doing what they want. So there have to be rules, and there have to be, what holds the society together. And so I think that's where mythology, so I look at religion as mythology. It's a way of building society, holding society together, something that gives us a reason to be, and a reason to do things. and to organize the society. So that's how I think religion evolved.
Yeah,
And I think that we
but for who though is the question I'd ask. I mean, because
one second, let me finish it. Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
So that's how I think religion evolved. And so religion is culture, but religion is also a means of shared values, if I can put it that way. And from religion, as you would see, for instance, with Europe, from religion came, it's intricately linked with the king, the monarchy, as well as how the courts developed, how the parliament developed, and all of those things. So that's how I see religion. So I agree with you. It's not strictly, in a sense, involved with how you rule. But to answer that question, I think that because once upon a time we all had our different religions, and it played that role again in terms of organizing that society. And yes, there may have been small and small and small tribes, so many different religions, but for that particular religion, it helped to organize it. It gave it meaning. It gave us such that if there was a calamity or some sort of national disaster or whatever it is, people came together and they prayed or they did whatever sacrifice they did. So it helped keep that society together. And
yeah, but
I'm sure that for me,
for who? I mean, this is the part that I'm missing. I'm sorry. I'm going to escalate this a little bit because I think we'll be very soft on this kind of conversation right now. And I've got a big issue with this particular thing, right? And allow me to just quickly share a couple things, because I've got a very strong opinion about the impact of religion on society and on people. So we've got things like this. This is a good example, right? Let's tap this. Can you see my screen? There we go. We've got this on there. This is one of the key things as well. You can see the relationship between religion and IQ, right? Generally, the more religious an institution, a country or a culture tends to be, the lower the IQ tends to be as well. Move to the other piece as well. Look at the country level as well. It gets even more interesting when you start understanding. There's a different one that had a bit more detail, but I said let's just leave that for now. Countries that have very high belief in God have lower IQs. There's a big challenge that we've got here around religiosity. And sorry, let me just end this. Stop the screen share. There's a big challenge that we've got here where religion is being used by those people in power, those people with higher intellectual capabilities, and those people with more resources to control others. Religion, to me, is not necessarily a system of putting people together and camaraderie and all the fancy stuff. No, I don't believe in any of that. I believe religion is a tool of control. Those people who have power use something like religion. Sorry, yeah, go on.
Okay. I've got a question for you, just in line with your thoughts. So I thought it might be important for me to chip in there. So if we think about a country like Saudi Arabia, for example, it'll rank very high among religious countries in the world.
Yep.
And let's contrast it with somewhere like northern Nigeria, where the same religion is practiced in large parts of it. Yet you're talking about two completely different countries with regards to every indices of well-being. Like they've got nothing in common with regards to the indices of well-being, but they've got this religion in common. That suggests to me that in both cases, the religion is just a thing. It's not what is dictating whether one achieves or the other doesn't. Like, this is just an artifact.
No, but not necessarily.
Let me throw a scanner across. Let me throw a scanner so you can answer the question. 1 second. 1 second. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So I also think that graph that you gave us. First thing is, what is IQ? And what is the place of economics setting? The example that Yemi just gave now, in Saudi Arabia, where there's oil money and these Muslims have access to good schools and good food, they're not hungry, they're not... Exactly. If somebody's hungry, you can't say you're going to go and start doing IQ tests, can you really, to be honest? And so you might look at Northern Nigeria and say they've got low IQ, but that's actually maybe purely economics, so there isn't.
So Cross, guys, the point I want to throw out there is correlation It's not causality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correlation is not causation. So perhaps there's a relationship. Perhaps there's a relationship between being very poor, between low socioeconomic status, and being religious.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so why
that
don't we
doesn't
come
mean
back to
one
that?
causes the other.
Yes.
Why don't we come back to that? Cross still has some points to make. We'll come back to that. We'll hold that thought, but very important.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So sorry. Can you, because there's like 2 questions after the one you asked me. Sorry. Can you bring me back to which one?
So the question that I posed to you is how you relate your thinking, the thoughts that you were sharing at the time with the fact that a country like Saudi Arabia and taking a part of Nigeria, northern Nigeria, share the same religion.
Mm.
And UAE, but that the outcomes are so vastly different that if religion is a factor, you really just can't say it is. Right?
Yeah, I mean, but I can, and this is a very good point. I like this. This is a very good point. Now, you can have a really stupid person win the lottery and have a fantastic life, and you can have a really stupid person not win the lottery and have a terrible life. Right? It's just what it is. If you have the availability of resources, which the Middle East is blessed with, the resources can change the expression or the standard of living within these societies. It doesn't necessarily mean that because if you look to the West, a lot of Western countries did not focus on these resources. They focused on intellectual property. China's a classic example.
No. Go back to your graph. Go back to your graph, please.
Which one?
Go back to that graph. Because if you
look
at a country
we
like
love
Indonesia,
graphs, don't we?
Jab loves his graphs.
Yes. So a country like Indonesia, again, is okay. Right.
Guys, while we're looking at that graph, I want to throw something out there to just basically discredit this study. Okay.
Just like that. Wow.
Yes. All societies on earth. Consider all of the world today to be real life experiments about belief systems and prosperity and success. All over, and this struck me in my early teenage years, when at that time I believed strongly that belief systems will lead to prosperity. But it struck me at 13, 14, the Japanese Shintoism, the Chinese atheists, the Europeans agnostics, the Emiratis Muslims. There is no real correlation when you look at the whole world between prosperity and belief system. There's none. There's correlation with hard work, with incentives, with strong systems, there's correlation with other things, but certainly not with faith.
Okay. So this brings me to something that I am concerned about in this.
Sorry, just before you jump in. Sorry, I just want to shout out.
I'm just going to ask questions. I'm not.
I know, but we've got comments. So there's someone welcoming you back as well. Shout out to Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is giving
Farouk
you
is
a welcome back, Farouk. You are missed clearly. So say welcome back, Farouk.
Okay.
Right. Okay, guys. So I've got a challenge to both Cross and Jabs, and you have to decide between yourselves who's going first and who's going next. But what I see both of you doing here is, on the one hand, Cross ascribing a lot of sort of almost physical characteristics with religion, in your case, in this case, IQ, and how that ties into development. And I think Jab also is ascribing a lot of moral responsibility for moral conduct in society to religion. And I put it to both of you that this means of ascribing seems to be problematic in many ways, one of which Farouk has kind of pointed out, that there hardly is any correlation between religion and development, really, in that sense. But I don't have any data on that, but I trust that Farouk might be able to kind of tell us why.
Empiric observation. The Chinese don't believe in Christ. The Japanese don't believe in Allah. It's just empiric observation of the world. It's
correct.
So I've laid a chart both Cross and Jab. And
okay. I'll go first. I think maybe you misunderstood me. I am completely aligned with Farouk on this. But the argument you would hear on the streets of Nigeria or anywhere in Africa is that religion makes us more moral and it should make us a better society. That's the expectation, right? That's the argument you're going to hear. I'm just explaining what you would hear on the street, but I'm not saying
Yes,
that
but we
is
can just
correct.
push back on that
The point
argument
is
and say
that
the argument is not good, rather than even so because you and I agree that it's not religion that made Saudi Arabia moral and obey law. It's because they've enforced their laws. That's all it is,
yes,
right?
yes.
You know.
No,
So
agree
why
with
do
you
you
completely.
expect northern Nigeria to be moral because of Islam?
No, 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 no. I don't at all.
Right.
However, where Cross is having issues with me or my argument or my stance is really, I think what I'm trying to explain is how religion evolved and the importance of religion in terms of organizing societies, right? And the people who then start to abuse religion, to go back to Cross's point about control, because religion absolutely has been used as a tool of control. So, but why? Why would it be used as a tool of control? It's because people recognize that it's also a tool for organizing society. So they can then take religion and use it to divide and conquer. And there are countless examples of this. This is where I'm coming from. So that's my argument.
Ijabla, I enjoyed how you built your argument there. How you went about people living as individuals and then hamlets, and as they marry and grow, there's a recognition that we need a meat that ties us together, and then a leader evolves, and that meat is the belief system, is the faith. I enjoyed it because going back to Yemi's initial question.
Just hang your thought there for a second.
Yeah.
Bear with me. Cross, please. We'll come back to you next, Farouk. There's I just sense that there's something that needs to get out of Cross now. Apologies for
No, I mean, so I've got quite.
I think it's Beelzebub. Beelzebub needs to get out.
We got the demon there, but no, I mean, look, I know we've got different opinions generally. Anyway, we've got different backgrounds around the whole.
AKA, we are misaligned.
We are misaligned about some certain things. But I think for me, fundamentally, and I'm going beyond the conversations that we're having. I'm going slightly off topic around this one. But I've got problems with the application of religion to society. I think going back to the previous conversation we had, religion as a tool is something that's being used by the rich. And I've not heard anything that contravenes that perspective. There's issues, even when we look at. I'm sorry, I hope you don't mind if I just screen share again. Just I like my screens. I don't know. Sorry, my consulting background. I can't help it. I just keep trying to avoid it, but it can't stop. It's still there. But we've got these things like this. For example, when you look at this and you start wondering and saying, "Well, what's going on here?" Religiosity, generally speaking, when you look at that. And apart from the outliers, like you got Saudi Arabia, which is somewhere around here, chilling there at that point, the rest of these countries, you can see how income and per capita income keeps increasing the lower down the religiosity scale that you go. That's
could you posit that the more financial freedom you have, the less religious you're likely to become? Is that a possible explanation of what you're saying?
That goes to Farouk's point, where Farouk was talking about correlations not necessarily causation, and I agree with that. But that does not necessarily correlation not being causation doesn't necessarily mean that it is not causation. This is that because I'm an economist, right?
Yeah.
My background.
Let me help, Chris. Let me help. I've got an explanation for this.
Let me just land this one because I think this is going to come up with our future conversations. I need to land this thing here. That with my background as well, generally you don't look for causation, you look for correlation. Generally speaking, you have a relationship between an independent variable or a bunch of independent variables. These are these variables and these different things that happen. And then you say, what's the dependent variable? What's dependent on those things? Even then, that doesn't mean whatever it is you're looking at is causing it. For example, I can say that how much you spend is generally dependent on how much you earn, your habits and your general behaviors and your what they call the marginal propensity to consume, or how much you consume of whatever income that you get as a human being. As a human being, you have like, well, I like to spend 20% of anything I earn. Doesn't matter how much you earn, you're going to spend 20% of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that your total consumption, how much you spend, it doesn't mean it's a causal factor based on these things. It can just be correlated. There could be other things that are actually causing you to behave like that. Childhood trauma. It could be something along the lines of what you've been watching on TV, which you're not putting into any of these factors, etc. This is my issue with this particular calculation that we look at with these things. And with religiosity, I am moving to the point of saying, I think religion in itself is a causal factor. It's one of those causal factors that we're always afraid of saying that it's a problem. I think religion is a causal factor behind poverty. I think religion is a causal factor behind lower education rates, especially in the Black community, especially in Nigeria. I didn't want to go down all the way through to Africa. We can't do that.
Cross.
Okay.
Might it be cross? Might it be just one question? Might it be that poorer, more desperate people without the requisite tools to dominate and exploit their environment turn to prayers and belief systems? Might that be the correlation rather than the other way around?
I disagree.
It's just a question.
Let me just answer for
let me develop.
Take a job. Let me just answer him. I want to answer him with the Bible, with the Bible specifically. So in the Bible, there was a very specific passage about the rich man where he was told, I've done everything, I've done all these things. What else do I need to do? And then Jesus, and this sounds wrong because most Christians are like, oh my God, how dare you say this? But it's a very valid question. And then what did Jesus ask the rich man to do? Give away all your possessions. That is a really stupid thing to do. I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody in the universe that has an issue with that. But Jesus told him to give away all his possessions. Why would any logical person do that? The only people logical people do that. So give away all the possessions? Absolutely not. They'll give away the possessions they can afford. Sorry, go on.
No. Logical people do that. So what you sorry, John.
Let me come back to you. So Farouk has made a good point there. Cross, I'm going to develop it a tiny bit. Let's just stay with Nigeria as an example.
Yep.
If you go back to the 70s when we were relatively comfortable, we had money, the country was not nearly half as religious as it is today. What's changed? Economics have become terrible, Can you hear me?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So think about it. Think about it this way. Take Singapore or Switzerland or whatever it is, right? You come home, there's light, there's water, good roads. You can educate your kids to whatever level, no sweat, right?
Why do you need God?
You're ill, you can get good health, you can get healthcare and all of those things, right? You haven't got much to worry about.
Yeah.
And if someone then comes to you, Pastor Adeboye comes to you and he says, I can raise dead people, come on. Do you think he's going to have audience there? He's not going to have audience, right?
But
right?
Why not?
So the opposite in Nigeria. 1 second. Because these people's basic things have been taken care of. There's no need for that superstition. There's no need about praying, God, when I get home, let there be light or let there be water, because
explain the
I've
IQ then. Explain the IQ issue.
Okay.
Why have we got less intelligent people?
Okay, I can say something about the IQ, Cross.
I'm coming to that. Okay, think about it this way. We're medical people, so you might not be familiar with this. But if you are undernourished, just think about it. If a child is undernourished and is very, very hungry and is diseased from malaria and all of these childhood illnesses and all of those kind of things, do you think that child is going to perform as well as a guy who, let's assume he was in the same class with Tinubu's son? Do you think he is going to perform as well as that? No, he isn't.
It depends. No. You're answering the question. You're begging the question there. You're jumping straight to the answer.
Cross. I will share.
Let me answer. Farouk, you're next.
Yeah.
Let me share one of my. Let me share one of my teenage reflections with Cross. It's just a reflection.
Okay.
2008, London, doing my master's in health economics. And one of my long lost cousins, I found him on Facebook. Before I found this cousin of mine on Facebook making very, very intelligent philosophical arguments, all my other cousins I'd ever known then, I'd ever known before then were from my uncles that were left back in the village, who did not have access to the kind of educational infrastructure I did. My dad did, and therefore myself did. And so I developed my thought, I developed my speaking, I developed my arguments. And I seem to be more polished and more intelligent than all of them. Clearly, if we all took an IQ test, I will floor all of them. But then on Facebook, seeing this my cousin's argument, very sharp, very articulate, deep philosophy, it began to dawn on me that the only difference between me, this cousin and me, he left the village, ended up in Kano, and then to Lagos, and then developed himself. But the rest in the village would not speak like us, would not score on a test like us. But these are people that were from the same genetic stock, same grandparent. Yet in just 1-2 generation, there's so much disparity.
Okay, so I think
model that to communities and societies. Poverty and lack of access causes a lot of, explain a lot.
Just to make, we need to go to crossbar, but just to plant a flag on what you've just said, Farouk. So the debate around IQ tests is a very complex one, and the take that you've just made about
we haven't even spoken about what
is not
IQ
necessarily universally agreed, right?
Yes.
And neither is the converse. So I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying the jury is still out on that. There have been twin studies reported where, they've been separated all their lives, totally different upbringing, and they're still scoring identical twin studies. They're still scoring pretty remarkably close. And there've been other studies that dispute that. So we don't know. Cross.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I'll even use yours as an example. Generally, IQ tests don't necessarily focus on knowledge. So I fairly recently did the Mensa test, and one of the focuses of that test was around patterns. These things are not necessarily always learned. A lot of these things are about knowledge-based concepts. The opposite. They're not knowledge-based concepts. They're based on your ability to be able to look at patterns, understand them, and apply them.
Abstraction.
Exactly, it's abstract knowledge.
But the point that Farouk is making is still not totally invalid. The reason is that even abstraction can be learned. So you don't learn the specific type of abstraction, but if you learn how to abstract, it can be taught. Then you can more likely abstract in other sort of
in other areas. Exactly.
Other areas.
And this is my thing as well about it. Like going back to Jab, because Jab, you were talking about this earlier. And it's like, look, okay, Jab saying, well, okay, you got all these kids and they're all struggling, they have pot belly, kwashoko, whatever. It's like, well, okay, fine, fair enough. I get it, right? If you feed that kid for 6 months, if that guy is intelligent, he's intelligent, period. If that woman or girl, whatever, they're intelligent.
Sorry, Jab. No, sorry, Cross. No. So as a child, right? Your brain's undergoing changes at the time, not all of which is reversible if some insults have happened. So if people have been through lots of physical, emotional trauma, malnutrition, there's no reason to believe scientifically that all of that will reverse once you take away those things.
I disagree. I'll tell you why. No, I'll disagree. I'll disagree based on outcomes. No, the reason I'm disagreeing is on outcomes. Right. I understand what you're saying, and that makes sense from a medical background. When you look at the actual processes involved in that, I forget what it's called, or whatever. But the processes involved in those physiological changes. But still, there are people who come from extremely poor backgrounds, very poor backgrounds, with very minimal parental supervision, lots of traumatic experiences in their lives, and turn out to be some of the most intelligent people in the world. Is that exceptions don't
So the
I know,
exceptions.
but
No,
that's my
no,
point.
cross. I need to make this point to you. So,
Exceptions don't make the rule.
and I because I run into this all the time when we discuss with people. So what I'll say to you is that exceptions are never a justification that a rule doesn't apply. So I'll give you an example. Farouk will tell you that if someone has lung cancer, some certain type of lung cancers, that the life expectancy is such. And that's correct. It's based on data. You will find people who will defy that data totally. I've seen them. I've seen people have 3 cancers back to back that will kill. One of it will kill anyone: breast, ovarian, and lungs, and survived all 3 of them. At least at the time when we were still counting. That doesn't mean that when I say that any of this is a killer, that someone says, "Oh no, I've got this woman." This is this woman is an elite freak of nature. It doesn't prove anything.
Yeah.
No,
Right?
but my point is that there's other factors outside just food, what did you eat, etc. It's like, well, that's important. It's great. Good. Did you have the right nutrition? Fantastic. Did you have the right upbringing? You're not being whipped and the son was not beating you to death where you're staying. I don't know, YouTube friendly, but whatever. But you're not dealing with these kind of circumstances. The other things also matter. Religiosity. The way you've been dealing with your brainwashing and how much control that they put on your brain affects you. It's a nature versus nurture argument, in my view, right? In my view,
Because I would agree with you if your brother argument is that a culture of not being accountable, a culture of not following the rules, a culture of superstition will undermine people as individuals and as society. If that's your argument, I'm with you 100%.
That's my argument.
Yes. But is it then possible to have a belief system and then manage somehow to have the cognitive dissonance to then understand that hard work, conscientiousness, rule of law, strong institutions are what will lead me to performance?
Can't work.
That's all we need. This is
work.
what
I think that's how. No, Cross. I think that is what the more advanced nations. I always like to break this down into individuals. That's what the more successful individuals have done. The very successful pastors in Nigeria with tens of millions of followers who tell them to have faith and they will be successful. They are incredibly hardworking. Yes. They are incredibly conscientious. Strategic. They're putting the work. They're putting the strategy. They somehow put themselves into this cognitive dissonance where they actually do the things we know cause success. They encourage others to have faith. They would see their doctors, they would see their oncologists, they would see their cardiologists if they have health issues. So I think, again, we've talked about it and Yemi had put a flag on it. Do we need to talk about these attributes that lead to success for individuals and nations? And can we somehow develop those alongside having faith? I think that's the conversation we should be having as Nigerians and as Africans. Because I'm not one of those that will say faith and belief system is the reason why we are where we are, so throw it away. I don't think that's possible.
Throw it away.
It's been quiet for a while. Let's get jabbing for a minute.
No, so I think Cross's argument. I used to make that argument. I did used to make that argument, but like I've said,
until you saw the light.
I'm in your past. I'm not hiding your shadows.
No. I did used to think that, but my views have evolved, and I think that, to me, I think that economics would explain perfectly what you're talking about, because if you think about how, let's even take, let's say northern Nigeria, where there's Boko Haram, for instance, right? So when you have that amount of deprivation, the schools are very, very poor. They're ramshackles, right? There are no books. There are no laptops. There's no internet connection. Of course, it's going to look. Those kids are not going to do very well. And what have they got? They've got religion, and their leaders tell them. So again, this comes back to your point, Cross, about a tool of control, because it's easier to control the mass of these people if they are not educated. If you just give them religion and you just say, this is what God wants you to do, for me to, and it's also they say God has made different levels, right? So we are at the top, you are at the bottom. That's how God wills it. So don't even question it. And you can
So
come.
somebody in the chat, Jabla, so you can respond to this as you go on. I'll just read out some things. How come Shintoism didn't affect Japan's development? 1. 2. In Asia, religions like Buddhism and Confucianism support learning and intellectual pursuits, which help faster development of education system aligned with modernization. So just speak to this as you continue. Sorry.
Yes. So I'm not going to say. I think any religion, first of all, you can have extremists, because we talked about this the other day, and fundamentalists. So I don't think that Islam is against the pursuit of whether is Western. Well, I mean, you can make the religions do whatever you want, but in northern Nigeria, for instance, we've got Boko Haram, which say that Western education is haram. So, but what part of education is Western? Is it the physics? Is it the chemistry? What is it that is Western? And there is no knowledge that is Western per se, because knowledge is the accumulation of however how many centuries or millennia humans have been around. It's the accumulation of all of that. That's what knowledge is. And in the days when we have travels and people move from one country or one region to another region, culture merges and people share what they have learned over time. But my point is that there isn't one knowledge that is Western or one knowledge that is Asian or another that is African. Knowledge is a summation of human endeavor and research and all of that.
Thank you.
Some religions, yes. So I don't think that itself, again, Christianity or Islam are against knowledge. I think, again, this all comes back to control. People can pick any of these religions and use them to control the people, in which case they might say that a particular type of knowledge, or don't dress in a particular way, or don't eat in a particular whatever, and this particular knowledge is you're forbidden to learn it.
Now I want us to focus on Nigeria. And Yemi, let me throw a question to you, and that relates to a comment that was made, a comment by one of our listeners. Why in Nigeria is our own iteration of religion such that it's not enhancing our group performance? What do you think are the reasons? It be that we are unduly expecting it to be when it's not supposed to be, or there's something else going on? What are your thoughts? And then following on from your answer, I'll ask a second question.
Yes, so I think this is something that I try to engage both Jab and Cross on, and we've had some conversations about it this evening. But my view
No, lost me.
A slightly radical one, if you like, and it's not just radical from my sense of point of view. It is actually evidence-based. Okay, so we know what makes people obey the law. We know that from psychological theories. Like this is not guesswork. I mean, we know the sort of frequency at which you have to mete out punishment. So when you mentioned previously about the imminence of punishment and how it makes us kind of revere the traditional, this is grounded in psychological theory, right? So the imminence of punishment and the regularity of it. Okay, so and in Western societies, for example, they use these things to very good effect. So you know that when you need to get people to slow down when they're overspeeding, that you put a camera there and just punish them every single time they overspeed there. That's
they will slow down.
Right? The vast majority, so 99% of them, again, I've just pulled that number out of my head, but you get the point I'm making. The vast majority of them will slow down. That's all it takes. It doesn't matter whether they're Christians, whether they're Muslims, whether they're Buddhists, whether they're traditional, it makes no difference. right? And so this is what we need to be paying attention to as Nigerians, I think. Okay, people can practice their religion.
I deliberately asked that question because I wanted us to focus and summarize, because we can blame religion. And my follow-up to that question is, therefore, why is there a great disparity between the performance of Nigerians in the private sector, GTB, Zenith Bank, Dangote, versus the performance of Nigerians in the public sector, local government employees, state government employees, federal government employees, same Nigerians, same culture, same religiosity, but two different systems, two different incentive systems. The same Nigerians built Zenith Bank, built GT Bank, that are continent winning, that are listing on the London Stock Exchange, built Nollywood, building, but they still religious, but the local government doesn't function. People don't turn up to work. The state governors loot till that, and the federal government, well, they don't send us. So what's going on? Is it religion, or is it incentives? Is it system? Yemi, please speak to that again.
Not consistent system of what we call. So it says, listen, it's called operant conditioning in psychology. It's operant conditioning. You can literally condition people, the vast majority. So there'll be a small minority, and the most extreme of them, we call them psychopaths. They can't, you can make 1 million rules and they don't feel anything. They'll just keep doing it, and you can make out. But you're talking, again, these are the elites. They're like the woman with 3 cancers. Like you don't factor them into the planning, because the vast majority are not like that. The vast majority will confront this rule, which is that if you mete out punishment that you kind of gauge to be severe enough, imminently and regularly, so almost every time they do that, they get punished. Okay, don't let it be random. They will obey them.
So let's reiterate this further. So you have the banking system. You must come in on time. You must perform, or you're fired. And then new people come in. They have recruitment systems. They have quality appraisal systems. So the same religious Nigerians go there and perform. Still corrupt, but clearly performing better than, say, same Nigerians employed into the state government or employed in the local government. So is the problem Nigerians? Is the problem culture? Is the problem religion? Or is the incentives?
So Farouk, yes. No, I think I'm hoping that Mr. Jones, I think T. Jones, hopefully that question has been answered, because I was going to speak. He put a comment there to say that Confucianism, Buddhism, and the Eastern or Asian religions are more adapted to development and intellectual pursuits. Yes, thank you. I hope that Farouk and the conversation between Farouk and Yemi has answered that question, because I don't think that I don't accept that African traditional religions are backwards. And certainly we can't say that Christianity and Islam are backwards, because we know that elsewhere, in other places that practice this religion, they seem to be making progress. So I think it's something different.
Christian lunatics in America, they obey the law.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like total lunatics. They are as bad as anything you will find on the streets of Lagos.
Yeah.
Cross, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I do. I definitely want to speak to this. I think, for example, Shinto and Jones, to Shintoism as well, or whatever the way you pronounce it works, is it still takes religion into itself. So one of the key reasons I believe that Shinto didn't affect development is because Shinto focuses on implementing the external world into the current world. You take those spirits into yourself. So in 2001 or 2, I can't remember when it was. There was a Japanese anime cartoon, Spirited Away, which is a very good embodiment around this, and it focused really about the implementation or the inculcation of the external world into the current world, and how humans were still mixing with spirits. And it was a very good view of Shintoism. Shinto says we are here. The outside world, the spirits and all that stuff, they come and they're here. Christianity Islam say, don't worry, when you die, you will go there. So forget about here. Here doesn't matter. What's happening right now is not important. What's important is later on. A lot of the other religions, and this is something I've noticed with the Far Eastern religions, they focus on the here and the now. It's about you. Buddhism talks about reincarnation, for example, which really focuses on you now, right? It's about the existence of today. What do you do? When you think about things from that perspective, about what I'm doing right now, the differences I'm making with my life today, it's not about what I'm going to do when I'm dead. Forget when I'm dead. I'm not talking about any of that kind of stuff. I'm focusing on me today, the impact I can make with my life, my family, my friends, my society, the people that matter around me, the things that I care about, my causes, etc. When I'm focusing on those things, because I'm thinking about that based on my religion. So to your point there, Jones, on that one, specifically this question, Jones, I'll just highlight that as well, about how it didn't affect Japan's, development. It doesn't really matter because Shinto focuses on you today. And this comes back to my point about religion. Sorry, just 10 seconds, and I'll just round this up. Let me just tie this all together. This just ties it all, it just brings it all back to the point that my view is that necessarily the religion that we talk about, especially religion that affects Nigeria, is focused on short-term gains and nothing about long-term, because long-term doesn't matter. The long-term in Nigerian religion is heaven. God is going to solve all my problems. That's it. I don't need anything right now. It's all about God. And if God isn't going to do it then in the future, God's going to give me money today. I'll pass the mic.
Okay, so I don't know much about Shintoism. However, I want to bring this back again to economics. I think that is where the answer is. Okay, I don't know whether our viewers know, but Japan was a colonial country. It practiced colonialism, right? So they developed towards the end of the 19th century. They underwent the Meiji Revolution almost at the same time as Germany was reaching the Industrial Revolution. So Germany and Japan sort of industrialized about the same time. So for reference, it's the Meiji Revolution for anybody who wants to look that up. So, but it was a colonial country. So what brought about the Second World War? Please, I hope you guys don't mind if I just spend a little time to just explain this. Okay, so what brought about
we will give you half a minute. We are 10 minutes past
right.
Half a minute.
So what happened with the Second Revolution? Second World War? Basically, there were no more the last two countries that industrialized. There were no more colonies to exploit, right? Therefore, the only way to sort this out was to challenge the countries that had all the colonies, which were basically France and Britain mainly. Between them, I think they had about 90%, I think, of the colonies around the world. So that was it. That was what set it all off. So Japan, Germany kind of thought, so they aligned. And
okay.
Because
so there's an important point around that.
No, sorry, where I was gonna, please let me land for a second. Okay. So that's what led to the war. I mean, you've totally thrown me off. You've thrown me off.
I apologize for that. But...
No, yes, but the point I was going to just make still again is economics. We can go back to Christianity and how, again, look at, let's say, the US, or in fact, any of the European colonizers, right? I know that they are like more atheists at the moment, like, non-believing type of thing. But at the time that they were colonizing, how they became these big, rich countries that they are, was through colonial extraction at the same time as they were Christians, right?
Okay.
Where
I've got two questions from that. One's...
I can't hear you, Yemi. I think
we've lost Yemi for a second.
Okay, we've lost Yemi. So let me continue.
He's back.
Right. So I've got two questions around one from what Cross is put forward and one from what Jab's put forward. And I want to put those two questions to Farouk to see if you can do this in 2 minutes.
Sorry, Yeah, please just let me make this point before Farouk fires off. Just to summarize, the point I'm making is that even though, because somebody might look at, to Cross's point, because he said Christianity and Islam, the way we're doing it doesn't allow us, because it's thinking about the future. It's saying that your reward is in the future. It stops you from developing today. I disagree. And the point I'm making is that these countries, Christianity, at the time that these countries were practicing Christianity, they were exploiting us. That's how they became rich.
Disagree. I
praising-
disagree. I'm
praising
sorry.
what-
No, that's cap.
No, what I'm saying is factually correct. They were
No, it's not. It's not. The fact that you're
Ijabla,
doesn't mean you're a
to
Christian.
buttress your point, in the 6th, 7th centuries, Arab tribes in the backyard of the Persian and the Roman Empire came up with a Judeo-Christian religion called Islam, and
Yeah.
within 100 years, burst into the scene, defeated both empires, and established the Arab Empire that stretched through 3 continents into Europe, into Spain and Portugal.
Correct. And it's the same Islam, right?
And what did they do? It's the same Judeo-Christian faith with a framework of struggle, jihad, justice, society. So that was how these headers in that time interpreted religion, mixed with their culture, and operationalized it. Same with the Turks migrating from Central Europe into the Middle East, came into contract.
And Cross is just kind of really upset about that point.
I'm losing my mind. I'm going crazy because it's like
have a go, Cross.
Again, generally speaking, you utilize, and that's why I put the graphs at the start of this call, right? Of this chat or podcast or whatever, where it's like, generally speaking, you can utilize people's intellectual incapabilities, even the intellectual ones as well. It's a very similar thing to what we had when we were looking at the video last week of Jordan Peterson struggling to deal with the conversation that he was having with Richard Dawkins. He was like, how do I explain this thing to make it make sense? It didn't make sense to him either. It's one of these things where even those who are less intellectually capable, again, we need to look at this. The average IQ of a human being, of the average human, is 100. People keep looking
so
at
that average that you're quoting, just to say, that average that you're quoting is the European average.
Yeah,
Again,
I know that.
It
depends on country. So depending on the country. Yeah,
it's
different
not
countries
the
have different.
European average. America is 98. Nigeria, by some stats, is 77, which you would say is really not.
I'm sorry.
Can we also say that IQ itself, the system of testing itself, is?
I'm sorry. That's too many. No. Rabbit hole. No. Stop. Rabbit hole. That's rabbit hole. Go down rabbit hole. Stop. It's one chart. It doesn't. My point is, it doesn't matter. It's some sort, even though it's relatively subjective.
No, but you can't say it's not important. If it's
wait. I know you're going to go down. I know you want to go down this rabbit hole. I'm not doing it. No, wait. We can have a whole episode on IQ if you want, because I've got issues with it as well. Because it's different ways of measuring it, different ages, different types, different mechanisms. I've got issues with them, right? But we can go down that rabbit hole separately. But my view is this: there's at least some sort of standardized system to measure intelligence, and the average person, though, regardless of what you're looking at,
it's contextual.
Wait, but it doesn't matter. My point is that
it doesn't matter if it's contextual.
Wait. I'm saying why it doesn't matter. Let me know why it doesn't matter. Let me say it. Half of the people in the world are below the average, because that's how averages work. Half. So that half of the people that are below the average of what you see in the world. Half. We focus too much on the other half. And we focus on people who are highly intelligent and it's like, well, there's a lot of people on that other side as well. Or this side. I don't know. Because I don't know which side I'm moving on. Maybe my IQ is like 22. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Right? I think mine's barely 15. But let me ask a couple of questions. And I think I will. Yeah. I think this will be closing really, because I think we should be doing kind of last word now. So if you kind of answer these questions with a mindset on last words. But the questions are this, and then so the first one is around Cross's description of how the Eastern religions helped to kind of propel them into what they are today. And my question to you is this: seeing that China and Confucianism has been going on for thousands of years, How come China had this? Is it a century of humiliation? Why didn't the religion help them then? Because I think this romanticization that I see people going around with, how everything in China is, like the 100 years where they struggled and couldn't make anything work for them doesn't matter. Like we just want to erase all of that and then ascribe everything to Confucianism. Why didn't Confucianism bail them out that time? So and I'm not, again, this is not me dissing them, but it looks like Farouk wants to have a go at this. But I think that's an important question.
I have a thought on that, and I think I've had a conversation with Ijabla around this. The Chinese had a civil war, followed by a cultural revolution, where they violently uprooted all of the systems that were meant to sabotage them. That is the simple answer.
Okay, so
the 100 years. So what colonialism does? What colonialism does, Yemi, is that it's a very
virus.
It's a very deep-rooted trauma on several levels. Generational and established system of faith, of organization, of governance, of organizing is truncated violently. And new systems are violently installed, such that if as a society you then want to move on from that, and I did make this comment in a group chat where I had pushback, where I say that perhaps had the colonialists stayed longer, where they instill that trauma even more, maybe we would have learned their methods better.
I think people didn't like you for that.
People didn't like that. But the point I wanted to make was that, you've once used the word to say as human beings we are like computers and we are programmed. So our civilization before the colonialists came was programmed.
I can prove that to you, Farouk.
was a lot of programming, and then colonialism comes, and then there's new programming where a lot of people will embrace it and believe it and accept it. But that leads to societal discohesion. Okay. And there is then a need, if you must then move forward. I think what the Chinese did in summary was the Communist Party versus the nationalists had a civil war. The Communist Party won on the mainland. The nationalists fled to what's known as Taiwan today. And then Mao undertook a violent, murderous cultural revolution where he basically killed everybody that had already taken a new philosophy. And if you look at every successful revolution in history, there has to be a cultural component where people are programmed to think in one way. Jabs, you can add to that.
Thanks, Farouk. So what I've got is two comments. Comment and a question actually on the chat. And what I'd aim to do, if it's okay, is it's turned into three now, but I'll split it one each for Cross and Jabs, and perhaps think about just kind of having potentially your last word as well. So to you, Cross, T. Jones is asking, how come religion didn't stop the Industrial Revolution of Britain? If you could do this in a couple of minutes, please.
Yeah, easy. Because in my view as well, right, the separation of church and state was a very clear understanding about how church doesn't mean anything. Religion doesn't mean jack. Doesn't mean anything. Whenever it comes to power, religion is only useful as a tool. Once that tool starts becoming too powerful, you get rid of it. That's exactly what happened in England. It's the same concept. It's not even a long answer, to be honest. It's a very short one. It's really short. That's just what it is. At the end of the day, it's like, look, once religion became a problem, it was blocking people. They said,
it was cut to size.
Just shift, move to the left. We're not interested in any of this kind of stuff. And it goes back to my original point as well about how those in power utilize religion to be able to enact control over the system, over the people, over society as a concept. And that's just all that was. It can't stop it. Religion can't stop anything because it's a tool that's utilized by the people who control what happens. The Industrial Revolution itself was a consequence of the people who are utilizing religion as a tool before. And that tool wasn't necessary at that point. So they switched the tool. I said, you shift, boom. Done.
Okay.
Jobs are good.
Thanks very much, Cross. So Job will like this one, and I'm going to just give it to you straight away. So Pro Z Edits said, corruption is a major barrier to development in Africa. It undermines public trust, diverts resources from essential services, and perpetuates inequality. Can you put that comment, Job, please, in the context of our discussion today about religion?
No, I agree with that. I agree. Corruption is a very big problem. The only thing I would say is that it's not the primary reason why we are underdeveloped. The primary reason is neo-colonialism, which is a new form of colonialism, hence the neo. Neo stands for new. And we are talking about instruments like the IMF, the World Bank, the WTO, and all of those extractive systems that the West has put in place to suck resources, whether that is human or natural, for their own benefit. That is the system that they've set up. We live in a global dictatorship. So they're in charge. That's the system they've set up. And that is the major reason why we are underdeveloped. The corruption is a consequence of that. But at the same time, corruption is also very important in holding that system together. So that's the thing that I would say to that. To go back to Industrial Revolution, quick statement in relation to that. Why did Industrial Revolution happen? There was the slave trade system, which was a triangular system. Human resources sucked out from Africa to plantations across the Americas, right? And they had to develop, sugar, tobacco, cotton wool, and all of those kind of things. So the plantation owners became very, 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 very rich, very rich. Lots of slave revolts happening there. Plantations getting burnt and all of those kind of things. So they had to start to think, how can we mechanize and get these things going? So it's not a mistake that it developed in the Industrial Revolution happened in Britain, in slave-holding colonies, as opposed to, let's say, far away Switzerland or China or those sort of things. The riches made it possible for the Industrial Revolution to happen. When Industrial Revolution happened and weapons became mechanized, it was at that point that Britain decided that actually we now have to transition from slave trade to colonialism, because so they came with guns and we had bows and arrows. You're not going to compare, that. So that's how it happened. So to go back to that point, yes, it is true that once upon a time, England was very, very superstitious and they were burning witches and, all of those things. But it did not stop the Industrial Revolution from happening, because, again, you have to go back to economics. And economics would explain why the Industrial Revolution happened in spite of religion. Thank you.
Thank you. Farouk, T. Jones has said it's a cultural revolution that we need in Nigeria. Do you agree or disagree?
Yes.
So
I would agree with a caveat that not in the form of what happened in China.
You don't want to go fight.
No. Not we don't have to kill off our university professors and educated elites and neoliberal economic managers. No, we don't have to do that. When I speak to a cultural revolution, and I absolutely say it is necessary, I'm referring to education. Appropriate
a revolution of minds.
Enlightenment, decolonization of the Nigerian mind, of the African mind. The kind of I would want to believe from the social media hype, the kind of cultural enlightenment going on in the francophone African countries as we speak, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mali. We need to change our curriculum. We need to teach our history. We need to learn about the Benin Kingdom. We need to learn about our belief systems, our spirituality. We need to learn our laws. We need to learn our history. We need to read about Biafra, the Civil War and why it happened. We need to do away with all the junk we've been taught at the moment. We need to put our children in a bubble, cut off Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
We need to stop reading Peter Pan to our children.
Yes. Have a leadership that understands that our greatest asset is the Nigerian mind, is the mind of the Nigerian child, and draw up a curriculum from birth till 18. So in that sense, absolutely we need a cultural revolution.
Okay.
And
So
without it, it will be difficult to have that to create that myth that today's Nigeria needs to step out and lead and develop. We need to create that myth.
I think Cross, we might just have a minute for Cross to say something about this comment that's just coming.
Could I just say something to that? Because Farouk actually had invited me to say something about this.
Yes.
Yes. So what I want to say here really is just I don't want to repeat what Farouk says. Everything he said is absolutely 100% correct. We need to go back to Mao's cultural revolution. Yes, it came with a lot of poverty and suffering and all of those things. But what was China doing at that time? It closed itself to the world. What was it doing at that time? What it was doing was saying to the Chinese people, we are a people of great civilization, 5,000 years of civilization. This is who we are. We can do this again. They changed the curriculum and made it Chinese or Sino-centric, if I can put it that way. Sino meaning China, right? As opposed to the Eurocentric, because so to go back to all the conversation that we've been talking about religion, why is this religion, why has it not helped us? And I'm not talking about morality and all that. Why has it not helped us? It's because it's a foreign idea. What the Chinese were doing there was they blocked all, they blocked themselves, blocked all the distractions and just said, we're going to talk about ourselves and how we're going to strengthen ourselves. So it has to start from education. Why is that? It's because you can think of the brain or the society as a computer, and it has a central processing unit. If a virus gets in there, it totally corrupts it and it destroys it. It doesn't work and it is slow. Nothing functions until you get rid of that virus. That is how important education is, because if we don't know who we are, if you say to somebody, what does Nigeria mean to you? You get 200 million definitions of Nigeria.
I want to Japa.
There. Exactly.
I want to Japa.
I want to Japa.
Coming from people who have Jackpad.
Exactly. Coming from people who are Jackpad. So I think what we're doing here is a kind of that cultural revolution, but it has to be organized, because yes, we're doing it in bits and bobs. We're doing this here, we're doing that there, and all that kind of thing. But actually, this needs to be a government initiative. The government has to sit down and say, we are going to draw up this curriculum. All this thing about if it doesn't happen in CNN or BBC or MSNBC, it hasn't happened, because where do we even have Africa doesn't have a network, satellite network or whatever, where we present African things that are relevant to us. To Africa, we don't. So people just come from with, if they want to overthrow your government, it's very, very easy. All they need to do, all these foreign people do, is to just divide the country in two and just pour petrol on top of fire, and that's it. The country is gone. So why is it difficult to do the same thing in places like China? It's because the majority of them know who they are, and they're enlightened. Exactly. So, but we can't do that in Nigeria, because anybody who wants to overthrow us now, all they will do is just sponsor a few people. Look at Boko Haram. Boko Haram is not indigenous, is it? It's people are fueling this thing from outside. So absolutely spot on. We need cultural revolution, and that is all centered around education.
So just to get us to be able to finish at 1:30 on the dot, what I'll do now is, having had these conversations, I will pose a question to all of us. It's a one-word answer question, so no explanation. Don't want you to say anything. You just pick an option. It's a multiple choice, and the options are yes, no, not applicable. Okay. And the question is, religion has become a hindrance to our development in Nigeria and Africa. Yes, no, not applicable. Jobs.
Yes.
Farouk.
You've gone silent.
Farouk.
Not applicable.
Cross.
Yes.
Yeah, me.
Right. Not applicable.
Okay, this is the whole topic.
Yes, thanks everyone for joining us. It's been, I certainly have really had fun just being here. To be honest, it's been, I've loved this. I like the passion. I liked the lots of interesting concepts from jabs. You know, you just kind of build things up, and then, you know, the data that Cross has come with, and just how passionate he is about how to make things better. And Farouk, thanks guys, thanks our listeners. We will do this again same time next week. Please join us.
Yes. So
thank you, everyone.
May I thank our listeners as well? Thank you so much for
signing out. Misaligned, always misaligned, and always aligned. We're doing what we do.
But can I just say, we did not talk about things like child bride marriages. We haven't talked about child.
That's why we've got another week and another week and another week.
Yes, okay, exactly, and that's why I voted yes.
Sorry. If we could just, I mean, it's a bit late, but just to call out the last message that we got, the last comment. We need our revolution in Nigeria. It will improve the country, not the type of revolution like the industrial, but a revolution, one that will improve the country's government, wealth, safety, and technology, and their military. So shout out to you, Turbo Trails Studio, on that one. Sorry. Yeah, go on.
Can we do this? Can we answer that next week?
Yes, we will. We'll take
yes.
save this one now. I'm favoriting that
make
one.
a commitment to the commentator. Thank you for coming up with that. Interesting engagement. Thanks for the engagement. We'll carry this forward next week.
Yeah.
Peace.
Thank you.
Peace. Thank you.